maybe the contents of any of the alien films that do Men in Black and such like, which I'm sure you've pre-based on your own television.
Hi everyone, I just thought today I'd do some painting. I haven't been on for a while.
Silly nonsense. And there may be other life on other planets, but
if there's life on other planets that are,
I hope everybody's doing good.
Spaceships and taking people up and take me to your leader. Gosh, poor things, they had to come meet Kill Starmer. Anyway, leaving that.
Yeah, imagine invading Earth. And the first person you're introduced to is being
Kill Starmer, you think wasn't worth the effort. You'd get back again pretty quickly. So no, I don't believe in aliens. I of course believe in astral bodies.
Yeah.
I believe in angels. Of course I do.
Have you ever seen an angel?
Of course I haven't. But
Do you think go?
very interesting.
Trying to sort of do a few nude.
I think so many such people have seen ghosts.
Not really.
Can be fake. But almost any individual example
Feeling the crime elements anymore, especially because it just seems to be YouTube's little fan club, and that's it. You get any views, even like on here, any views on this. You know, it's all about, it's not about your personality, it's about how you like a person really on here. And I'm not very likeable, and that's fine. So I'm just doing painting from now on, and yeah, I do like wonder if YouTube is actually shadow banned my account now because of all that I have put out. Maybe what I haven't put out isn't what people have been ready for. It's like with the human case. I read all that out. People want content on human, but I read all that out about what was going to come. About like he's got into a car, you know, like trying to fraud and try to get injury claims and things like that in the past, and I was going to go through all that with you. Wow, with anyone. But I don't feel I've got anybody on here now who enjoys doing any of the topics to do with human. So I'm stuck to really to what to do now. But yeah, I thought I'll do my art, I'll go back to doing this, and you know what, it is quite time consuming as well. So it'd be a good idea to video it as well as, you know, you can see what I'm doing, because a lot of the people that I'm selling the art to wouldn't mind a video, you know, being done on it, even if I'm selling it to them, you know. I think human myself will confess, and then you've got the problem then of like the ones he does admit to, are you going to believe him? You know what I mean? Because there'll be others that like he's swearing that he has nothing to do with Sandra Costello, which I find I know, I don't know what's setting up for him, but it's cool, isn't it? Mental. You just come on here and just assume people are mentally ill.
You're going into the sort of things that totalitarian states do.
Yes.
I've always
Do you want to answer that?
distrust the state, not because the people leading it are particularly bad,
No.
but because they could be bad.
I have like crazy stalkers on here, I think.
That the state can be bad, and that people with power abuse it, and labor together.
No, nothing but
trying to undermine to very
from the other side of the water.
journalists. I will confess I've only had one such dealings with Gabriel.
But
If you want to hear from
yeah, I just like to paint and just I fill my time. I don't have time to dwell on my health, of my mental health. But you carry on, whoever you are, nag.
He does his work. And trying to undermine something like that, and for Labour, a party tainted, criticised by the Quality Commission for being anti-Semitic, to be raising questions about the Jewishness of a journalist. I just think this is deeply sinister. And our viewers and listeners should be very concerned about this. This is not how the British state behaves. And I know Labour Together was not at that point the state, but it was about to become it. And this is the background.
It's like people use mental health as an insult, but little do they realise that that in itself is saying there's something about your mental health. It really is. Hi.
Well, hair color and eye is a long story. What worked in the past may not necessarily work today.
Sorry if I can't look at the camera while I'm doing it, I'm afraid. I'm trying to have the camera there so I can see, but it's not helping. I don't know.
Just to be clear on the details, so as well as
I'm better old to make babies now, I'm afraid. Well, thank you. If I had my ovaries still, that would be a real offer. It'd be fine, someone with ovaries. I love the messages on here sometimes. I'm going to leave that for a second because I don't want to make a mess. I like to be able to make friends on here, but I've realised that people are quite sort of strange, and I don't know why you're scared of me. Good. I should have prepared for this scary filter, shouldn't I? Did a horror story for you guys, but I didn't know it was going to go down like this, I'll be honest. But I just didn't want you seeing how pale it looks, but bloody hell, this is definitely worse, isn't it? And my teeth look like, I know my teeth are bad anyway, but jeez.
That looked back to the period of 2017 to 2020 when McSweeney was in charge of Labour Together. They report that in November of 2023, so this is ahead of the general election that we don't even know is being called at that point, and then within days, Simons, having inherited
Things you do to earn money these days is a side hustle.
Correctly accused of some problems with its accounting.
I haven't got a steady hand today, guys, I'll be honest with you. Hope everybody's having a nice Sunday. It's my baby's birthday today. She's coming home at 9. Oh no, not 9. At noon. And we're going to have a little get together. See my baby girl. And she doesn't want a party or anything like that. She just wants to spend time with family. She does rehearsal through the week, so she's tired. And they're off at the moment, which is nice, because I haven't had any time with her really.
isn't now.
I can't go to pictures or anything like that though, you know.
Also,
So
what is
it's
the
good.
nature of the relationship between
I don't know
Labour
who's
government
given
and
me like
Labour government? And I say that because
sour messages,
can
but
Stanley back to do
just
with
get the fuck
dialogue
out of here if
on
you're
the
going to
record.
ambassador.
We have a number of former
Seriously.
fellows of Labour together who go on to be elected. Lisa
Hey,
Nandy,
please, what lovely. I didn't see your message on.
obviously elevated from that position.
My messages
into
have been
a
withheld. I have no idea what
We
they're
had
saying, my
Mr.
friend.
Simons at the time that he was at the helm being spoken up as somebody great, and obviously he wins a seat.
Thank you for joining me, Pluxilla.
And the
Am I
criminal
quiet?
tactics that
Can't you
he
hear me
employed.
then?
Shouldn't the government say we can have nothing to do with this group?
Well, but shouldn't we ask about Starmer's?
Just got to be very careful at the minute.
Because as director of prosecutions, he prosecuted dozens of journalists. Starmer hates journalists. He hates.
I don't know why people are so
cases he brought
frightened by nudity these days. Oh, I go like that. But
has a hatred of
you know
it. So
what?
their
I think
character,
all
their
people, no matter what you look like,
actually, even
is a
back
work
to
of
Van
art.
Morrison,
It wasn't our
You know?
fault that it really fell in the sea.
Um, I don't have a problem with nakedness like other people, like I suppose.
prosecuting the journalists and
I've had to do life lesson, you know, like life art lessons.
It was around the time of Leveson.
And
Some of it was in relation to
honestly, I didn't know where to put me bloody eyes, but you get used to it,
from
you know.
civil servants.
You know, and if the body isn't a disgusting thing, you shouldn't be ashamed of your body. You should be ashamed of having a portrait with a naked woman on it. You know, it doesn't mean you're a pervert if you like women, you know, it's just a picture. But you get a lot of people who, but I'll be honest, nudity sells more, and it's unfortunate but true, you know. But yeah. Now all the haters have gone. I hope everybody's alright. I don't know where they come from. I really don't. Fucking crawl out of a rock for my lives though. I look forward to reading your trash messages.
That's really serious. And if they found real evidence that this had come from the Russians or anything of that kind, we would have heard about it.
The other irony always in this is prime ministers who don't like journalists and who don't like press scrutiny, and yet are perfectly happy to have their people brief aggressively in the case of West Streeting. I mean, this is the other thing.
I'll put some music on next time I do this, but I just wanted to do an hour before my girl comes out. I mean, he's not going to admit to the Sandra Costello case. I'm talking about human again. Sorry, I sound delirious. But yeah, I do wonder who he will admit to disposing of, and I don't know if he'll be telling the truth even then, you know, because a lot of people lie as well, you know, when they get caught out, take credit for things they didn't do, fantasize about things like that, and I'm not totally convinced he'd be telling the truth if he was telling the truth, if you get me.
To be fair, I agree with the celebrities who are taking on journalists that actually hacked their phones.
People break the law, that's different.
People break the law and they're illegally gathering information, and that's an aberration. And actually, phone hacking has been such a stain on our industry, especially for journalists who weren't, like me, who weren't involved in it at all, and then you get tarred with the
But
same
there's a lot of naivety as well, the idea that friends don't brief about it. I mean, heaven's sake.
For heaven's sake, we were discussing last time you were on that you worked in the diary column, you all know who leaks what. I mean, people leak extraordinary things about their nearest and dearest. Absolutely. So I agree with the celebrities trying to take that on. But no, when it comes to, I don't really like this headline, again, Brooklyn Beckham has recently been accused of exactly the same as Harry and Meghan. On one hand, you're claiming privacy, and on the other, you're engaging in these strange sort of, last week he and his wife, the the Beckhams Peltzes, I should say, were pictured like carrying a load of dogs, looking so conspicuous. If you want to lead a quiet life, maybe don't parade around Hollywood Boulevard with dogs in handbags, where the paparazzis are quite happy to snap you up.
They're quite boring, really.
What, the
Yes.
Beckhams?
But not
They're not as interesting as the recent
not the Sir David and Lady Beckham. But the Beckham offspring are not particularly exciting. I think it's far too much newspaper coverage of a fundamentally uninteresting story.
can understand more than most, but it's like
I want to use metallic in some way, but then
Not to that degree. I mean, it's
No.
lower down the scale.
we're going to keep a very close eye on the minimal as they progress through life. If you're enjoying our journalism, why not sign up to From the Editor, our free email newsletter? Start your day with the latest news and opinion, plus our bite-sized puzzles. Scan the QR code to sign up free today.
sorry, you can't see. Can you see it? No? I'll show you a bit more closer. You can't see in this light, it's so awful. I should take that filter off. I'm gonna. Oh my word. Can't see shit. There we go. Does anybody else like painting in the pastime? I like painting women more. In my glasses, they're lovely.
Zero helps me take my business anywhere I want.
Do you like her eyes?
How do you
Right,
design
I'm gonna.
prosthetics and calculate it based on your anatomy and all before surgery, custom made for every individual, one that will last.
There we
one that will
go.
feel secure.
On today's Daily Tea, I'm joined by Jacob Rees-Mogg, and we're going to be delving into the Chinese spying story.
Could it bring down the government? Government is not providing the evidence that it needs. That's what the CPS has said. Why would the CPS make that up? So, what's the government doing? Well, the government's in terrible trouble. And part of Starmer's foreign policy is to have better relations with China. Now, to do that, we want to give them an embassy.
The super
Fast
embassy.
super embassy. Spy embassy in North.
Yes.
And he's too embarrassed or ashamed to accept that they are, in fact, an enemy, which they are.
Jacob, the spying scandal, China, as we like to call it now, in the vein of Donald Trump. What do you make of all this?
And the spies are lucky. Well, quite the money. The government's fast, effectively. It's run the economy into the ground. They want to get a few shillings off the Chinese table, and they're sucking up to China like the video. The last thing that wanted was an embarrassing trial that pointed out that China was and is an enemy, and so they kiboshed it.
I mean, that's quite the accusation if you think that is what was behind this case against Christopher Cash, who was a parliamentary researcher, and Christopher Berry. They both consistently maintain their innocence. We must stress that, Jacob. They were charged under the Official Secrets Act in April 2024. The suggestion was that they were passing information to Beijing. And then, curiously, the case collapsed when the CPS said, I don't know what you think with your...
Get there eventually, eh?
what you who thought this was nonsense, but whatever. And things are getting very confusing because the government is saying this was down to the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service. The Tories are saying no, it's actually the fault of Jonathan Powell, Keir Starmer's National Security Advisor. He's the one that didn't give the evidence the CPS needed to proceed with the case. We then have Dan Jarvis, the minister, in the House of Commons yesterday, saying actually it's not Jonathan Powell's mistake. If any mistakes were made, it was his deputy Matthew Collins who should have submitted the relevant information to the CPS. It's all his fault.
The National Security Advisor made no decisions about the content of any evidence relating to the case itself. This was a matter for the Deputy National Security Advisor, a hugely experienced, highly capable senior official who provided evidence under the previous administration.
And what seems to have happened is that Jonathan Powell or another have said that they won't supply that information and therefore we're in a state of limbo where the trial can't go ahead. That's my understanding. Is that yours?
I don't know how to proceed, you know, like with the mouth, because the mouth to me looks quite good, but then I'm scared of ruining the shade on it, the angle on it. Sorry, I look so rough. I haven't been sleeping very well.
From statements by the then government, statements in Parliament, and by a recent judgment in relation to Bulgaria, that the threat posed by China is sufficient to classify it as an enemy in 1911 terms, which is what matters.
Yes.
So the CPS has had to pull back on the prosecution because the government is not providing the evidence that it needs. So that's what the CPS has said. Why would the CPS make that up? So what's the government doing? Well, the government's in terrible trouble. And part of Starmer's foreign policy is to have better relations with China. Now, to do that, he wants to give them an embassy.
The super embassy.
To spy on us even more.
Yes.
And he's too embarrassed, too ashamed to accept that they are, in fact, an enemy, which they are. Now, an enemy, as long as Jimmy and I, not from joint vile in the new territories.
I hate our government. They're so cowardly. It's pathetic.
Confinement now since I believe 2020 on spurious charges. Just because he's been a very vocal critic of
free speech charges, essentially.
the Communist Party in China. He remains there. You make a very good point about the threat. I mean, both Kenny David and Tom Tugendhat, who we're going to hear from in just a moment, have sort of said to the House, these are all the times that we have described China in the past as a threat. I mean, they spy on us, they're capable of cyber attacks, they put sort of targets on the backs of dissidents. As you say, we've got this super embassy over the Royal Mint on site in Tower Hamlets. Blueprints suggest that there are spy tunnels underneath. The intelligence services and the police don't want it. It's now, again, in a degree of limbo because Angela Rayner said it was okay, but we don't know what David Lammy thinks. And the other curious thing, this is the other thing to throw into the pot, that Jingye, after they basically put British Steel out of business, were negotiating with the government as to whether they should be given a £1 billion.
Yeah, I think I'll just go neutral colour there. It's just more of a neutral tone there.
Compensation package, that's right, is another part of this money that the government wants Chinese money. And that's what
I like painting bright pictures, but usually they're not as tame as this.
and ignoring all the threats that come from China to this country. And not just this country, but to the West at large.
Before we go forward and discuss what could happen, because I think the pressure is mounting on the Prime Minister, let's just go back a bit. Some of this is the Tories' fault because George Osborne and David Cameron nurtured that golden era where they too were sucking up to China. I mean, it's almost like we're closing the stable door after the horse has bolted when it comes to Chinese investment. The Chinese literally own huge swathes of our critical national infrastructure. They're already here. They're here to stay. We can't get them out.
I think both yes and no. But China under President Xi is different from how it has behaved under the previous presidencies. That it really did look post-Deng Xiaoping, the move away from Maoism, as if China was wanting to become part of, for want of a better term, the global community.
Yeah.
They were sticking to the 8-year terms for their leaders. They were having smooth transitions of power. They were becoming more capitalist, and they were becoming slightly more open. Now, she has changed all that. And to be fair to Cameron and Osborne, they were in charge in the very early days of Xi, before it had become completely clear quite how much he was changing it, and indeed before the approach in Hong Kong was changed,
Yes.
which obviously a crucial British national interest. So
Although you could say, we can counteract that with, you could say the clue is in the word communist.
well, yeah, but there was an enormous development under Deng as opposed to Mao. Fundamental change. What was it he said? He said about communism, he didn't mind whether a cat was black or a cat was white as long as it caught mice.
Yes.
That it was communism with Chinese characteristics, which basically meant capitalism.
Right.
It was a really big change. And reversed when she became president, and removed the term limits and so on. And so I think to say that it's always been in a separate state is wrong, and that Cameron and Osborne were dealing with China as China then was. Now, China has got much worse since then, and has become much more of a threat to the West, and more hostile in its interactions with the UK.
Yes.
So I think it is now that it should be clear to the government, as it was becoming clear to Rishi Sunak and indeed Boris Johnson, who also started off being very sympathetic to China, ended up being much more suspicious of China by the end of his term.
I mean, how can a regime not be an enemy if they sanction British MPs who criticise them?
Well, quite, yes.
But then how big do we think this scandal is in the scheme of scandals, Jacob?
Well, I think, say Amanda Smith, put his finger on it yesterday with one of those parliamentary questions that leaves the minister's middle stump disappearing back towards the pavilion. What does the National Security Advisor do if he doesn't advise on national security?
Let's have a listen to that clip, because we haven't.
Madam Deputy Speaker, first of all, can I say that as my right honourable friend, the opposition said, the 2002 and 2003 integrated reviews were very clear. All the officials in the security services called and said that China was a significant threat. That was sufficient to give to the CPS, not even by ministers, but by officials. The question is why not? But the question I really want to ask is the absurdity about the role or lack of role of the National Security Advisor. The government says that he wasn't involved in any matters of substance. But I simply say, isn't it the role of the National Security Advisor that they are involved in all matters of substance when it comes to national security? So I ask, what's the point of a National Security Advisor who does not involve themselves in matters of national security, as in this case, but instead we are meant to believe that the Deputy National Security Advisor is allowed in this case to involve themselves in substantial matters of national security, but not apparently discussing substantial matters of national security with the National Security Advisor. This does seem to me to be an absolute matter of substantial absurdity.
Nothing compares to an indulgent escape. Experience the ultimate luxury package holiday with dedicated VIP customer service and 25 kilograms of baggage included. Book now with Indulgent Escapes. Budget 2 holidays.
He is referring in turn, Jacob, to Dan Jarvis, the minister who addressed the Commons yesterday night, basically throwing this chap called Matthew Collins under a bus. Matthew Collins is the deputy to the National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, who is desperately trying to distance himself from this. He in turn is, of course, linked to Tony Blair.
Bored of it already. I think I'll just make that like a purple, because I'm really not too keen on the neutral colour.
But
Probably won't
Britain
like
has
it,
a
but
vicarious
you know.
responsibility for this. It is ultimately power, and then above power, it's the Prime Minister.
Of course, that's right. Power is the Swiss Vice Prime Minister. Power must take responsibility for people who work under him. It's very bad constitutional form. It's not just bad manners, it's bad constitutional form to blame underlings. We have a doctrine of ministerial responsibility. The responsibility lies with the minister, and then immediately under him, the most senior advisor. The most senior advisor takes and brings together the advice from junior advisors.
Yes.
He's not an ineffective, pointless person just swanning around the world. He is the key advisor who the Prime Minister puts confidence in, but ultimately the Prime Minister is responsible for decisions of the government he leads.
Talking about swanning around the world, so Keir Starmer wasn't obviously in the UK yesterday, he was in Egypt. We can question what on earth he was doing there. Did you see the moment with Trump?
I did, yes.
United Kingdom. Where's United Kingdom? Where's your friend? These people all came at like 20-minute notice, and I think it's fantastic. And we have so many others, and just so many others.
Well, the whole thing is extraordinary. So there is Trump. He says, where's the United Kingdom? He looks around. Sir Keir Starmer, as if he was schoolgirl in pigtails, puts his hand up to, yes, sir, practically, waddles forward, and then shakes hands with Trump, who says, how are you, and things like that. And then Trump just turns his back on him. The Starmer waddles back to his position. And this point back, he came at 20 minutes notice. Here's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Yes.
He is not Donald Trump's poodle.
No, although he's increasingly looking like that. Did he want to speak? Do you think he went up to the lectern because he thought he was going to have an opportunity to say something? Why would he think that?
I don't know. It's just putting his hand up. I mean, it's so undignified. He's meant to project power. He's meant to project a nation abroad. He's meant to project the authority of His Britannic Majesty's Prime Minister.
Yes.
And instead, he looks as if he's waiting for the prep school photograph to be taken and is obeying instructions from the photographer.
Maybe he can't outpower the most powerful man in the world stage. I mean, there was that strange exchange between Trump and Emmanuel Macron, where they're in
Looks
some
too
kind of
light to me, and I don't know.
handshakes here, bro shakes, very odd. He wouldn't let go of him. Trump does use his physicality on other leaders, doesn't he?
Oh yes, he does. And Trump is a tall man and built on a certain size.
Yes.
And
Glowing orange.
Macron is a munchkin, and therefore, in comparison, Trump overwhelms him. Also, the President of France stands on his dignity.
I'm going to say stand on Cuban.
No, I'll do that as well. Stands on his dignity as a head of state, which is very difficult to do when you're elected in that way.
Yes.
That you represent raw power as a head of government rather than the dignity that the king expresses as a head of state who's not political.
Yes.
And it's very interesting. Trump doesn't try his tricks on the king
No.
because the king's different.
Yes.
And yes, he outranks Starmers and the Macrons of this world, but I just don't see why Starmer went.
No, why is he there? Never hear here.
I think this travel is a great mistake because Prime Ministers need to be attending to domestic business. They just care about domestic business.
Yes.
And Prime Ministers need to be refreshed and well slept and able to do their job. Spending that whole time in a cigar tube, swanning around the world, means they're too tired to be able to do the job properly. And I think it's probably because he's not managing to do his domestic job well.
But he doesn't want to be in the UK.
Well,
because
they've united him.
the headlines are terrible.
And he gets out and there's a nice band and red carpet and everyone says he's marvellous and it's all jolly.
Yes.
But this is a mistake Prime Ministers normally fall into when they've been Prime Minister for a long time. He fell into it the day he became Prime Minister. He just loves these jollies.
Yes. Do we think that people are exaggerating when they say that this spying scandal could, quote, bring down the government?
Well, everything could bring down the government if mishandled.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But this spying scandal is serious because, as always, the cover-up, that making the country feels that the government's being straight about it, telling us who made the decision, why the decision was made, and therefore we've got to piece it together. And the government keeps on putting out increasingly spurious explanations. So it's the CPS's fault, it's the Tories' fault, it's probably Nigel Farage's fault.
Yes.
Perhaps it's Ed Davies' fault. Davies talks about him much.
Who?
Quite. Who, why, what. And this is, I think, making people feel uneasy. It's government you just can't trust.
Well, earlier on I spoke to Tom Hutt, who is the Conservative MP for Tonbridge. He's an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran and former chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. What's interesting about Tom's role in this, of course, Jacob, is that he previously employed Christopher Cash as a researcher when he set up the Parliamentary China Research Group.
I find it completely baffling. I mean, the government has effectively set up three possibilities. Either the Director of Public Prosecutions, the head of MI5 and the head of the Counter-Terrorist Police exceeded their powers in arresting two people, or the Director of Public Prosecutions has completely failed to bring a prosecution, or all of those people are telling the
Backs are the same fucking
and
colour.
as the Director of Public Prosecutions has said, in letters to me and to other MPs, he asked and waited for a long time for evidence that he requested. It wasn't forthcoming, and therefore, as he put it, the evidential threshold is, and I quote, no longer met. So something changed. Now, what we don't know is what changed. The government won't tell us. It hasn't been made clear to us. But I'm afraid you can either believe that the head of MI5, the Counter-Terror Police, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and the Treasury Solicitor, the head government lawyer, went rogue when they arrested these two individuals, or you can believe that something has gone wrong in the case and that the government is in some way involved. But I'm afraid you can't believe both of them.
What do we make of the minister saying yesterday blamed for not giving this crucial evidence over to the CBS, suggesting that China is both a threat and the enemy? But now Jarvis is saying, oh, actually, if anyone's to blame, it's this guy Matthew Collins, who is Jonathan Powell's.
So Dan and I served together in Afghanistan. He's unbelievably courageous in battle and a chap of the highest integrity. I have nothing but respect for him. But I'm afraid the line he's been given to repeat in the House just doesn't hold water. I mean, I know Matthew Collins. I worked with Matt Collins. He is somebody who has served our country with integrity and courage over 20 years as a very senior official, including some of the most sensitive briefs. So the idea that in some way this is his responsibility, when, as you correctly point out, he's the Deputy National Security Advisor, this is a decision either by act or by not acting. It could be a decision of omission as well as commission to, in some way, change the way in which this prosecution is going, and that could not have been taken by an official like Matthew Collins, both because his integrity wouldn't allow him to do it, and secondly, he's not senior enough. This is a very serious political decision about a strategic trial.
Also, the conundrum is as follows, surely. If Jonathan Powell was acting alone, then why was he acting alone? And if the Prime Minister didn't have oversight of that, that's a problem. But if he wasn't acting alone, then ministers must have known. So they can't have both, can they?
When the National Security Advisor was appointed, the Prime Minister took an unusual decision to make him a special advisor, not to appoint an official. Now, I think that's an unreasonable thing to do. There is a strong argument you want your National Security Advisor to be somebody who's very closely connected to your political leadership. I think completely respectable. But once you've done it, then the special advisor is a special advisor. They don't have an independent mandate. They only act off the basis of the ministerial permission they've got. And in this case, that's the Prime Minister. Now, when my special advisor did things, he was obviously brilliant. He would never do anything wrong at all. But if he were to have done anything, I would have been personally responsible because he would be acting in my name, with my responsibility, my actions. So I'm afraid the same applies here. The Prime Minister is personally responsible for any actions by any of his special advisors. And in this case, frankly, he's most senior special advisor.
Now we know what we know, and I liked the video you put online sort of saying that these were the many times that I described China as a threat during the course of my time in the last government, etc., etc. And now we know what we know, and I had Bridget Phillips of the education section on my DBU show on Sunday, and she basically did admit that, yes, China was a threat. So if we know all this now, and it's increasingly putting the pressure on the Prime Minister, questions are being asked, some people are suggesting this is enough to bring down the government potentially. Why not now give the evidence the CPS needs and proceed with this trial? That's the part of this I can't understand. It's not as if we're in a case of, oh, double jeopardy, we've already tried them. They haven't even been taken to trial. Why wouldn't the government just give the information now to the prosecutors?
So, forgive me, I can't answer that question. I just don't know. I'm not legally qualified to answer it. All I'd say is that I thought your interview with Bridget showed something that I'm afraid we've seen far too much of in recent days. We've seen the government throwing out lines and testing different arguments to see which ones stick, basically like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing if it's ready. And the reality is that sorry, that's my cooking style, maybe not yours, but the reality is that what they're doing is they're effectively running a disinformation campaign. This is what the Russians do. This is what this isn't how you inform people. Now, I'm perfectly prepared to believe that something went wrong, right? Maybe something did go wrong. But if something did go wrong on a trial of this importance, come clean, tell us what it was. And if what went wrong is your decision to prioritise the economic over the security interests of the United Kingdom, well, I'm going to disagree with you, but at least I'll recognise that you have an argument, you have a position that you've taken. Currently, I have no idea what the government's view is, because they've thrown out 4, 5, 6 stories, all of which are contradictory, none of which are true. And the latest one, they're claiming that there's some sort of definition or you've got to define a country as an enemy or a threat or whatever. It's complete rubbish.
Yes.
That's not how this works.
That's Boris Johnson was in the studio yesterday and he said exactly that. And he said there is no rigmarole you need to follow. You just try the case as you would try any case under the Official Secrets Act. He also made the point, I don't know whether you agree to conclude, I mean, how bad is this for Keir Starmer? Johnson saying to Tim and I, obviously, this makes Partygate look like a piece of cake, pardon the pun. This is very, very serious. This government's mired in sleaze and scandal. I can just imagine him saying it, Tom. I mean, how serious is
he's
it?
right in the sense that, look, Boris and I were never particularly close. I think that's a fair way of putting it. But the reality is that was an infraction. This is a very serious threat to our national security. I mean, look, I forgive me for sounding uppity about it, but the reality is, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I say. I'm only here. I only have to because people elected me to do so. And the only voice that I will use is on behalf of the British people. Now, again, you may disagree with me. I disagree with me, and you totally entitled to vote me out in the next election. That may well happen. But while I am here, I am representing the community who sent me here. And so to interfere with the actions of my office, to interfere with the actions of Parliament, is to interfere with the freedom of the British people. Now, that's really serious. Are you honestly telling me that the government doesn't have a responsibility to defend the freedom of the British people to express their views, their ideas, their hopes, their dreams, in whatever way they choose? Surely that's wrong.
The plot thickens. Should Penny use every question on this at PMQs tomorrow? I'm just thinking, she had great success, didn't she, when she just stuck with the Peter Mandelson line that week? What do you think?
Well, I think she should follow up on Ian Dutton Smith's question.
Yes.
And try and find out what this National Security Advisor does. It's too early to advise what should be Prime's questions tomorrow because something dramatic may happen between now and then. But in the absence of anything else, this is the government's weak spot and it is the cover-up. And anything that's said to Parliament has to be strictly accurate. Misleading the House of Commons is the great sin of ministers.
So she could perhaps box him into some kind of corner where he's forced to say something very publicly about this whole thing. Talking about forcing people into corners, we had Boris in the podcast studio yesterday. Did you catch up with any of it?
I did, yes.
Yes.
So full reports on it.
Well, he's quite animated at the moment. Where do we think he is in his life, Julian? You know him very well.
I'm not liking to make windows into men's souls.
Well, so just open that, just draw back a version. All right? I mean, he doesn't want to return to politics, but I got the sense from him that he is so frustrated that he isn't Prime Minister. He's very angry with Rishi Sunak still. Why are you saying anything?
Oh, I thought we had more to say.
No, okay, well, I do agree he's very angry.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Well, look, Rishi Sunak came in and won.
Yeah.
The Rishi Sunak did not deliver very well under plan. He took us to a catastrophic defeat. He called the election early. Rishi Sunak was responsible. Well, it did, I think, Rishi Sunak was around now. It was highly intentional. But as a prime minister, it didn't work.
So out of the three last prime ministers, Johnson, Sunak and Truss, you think Sunak deserves most of the blame for the electoral calamity?
Of course I do, because it's Sunak who was behind the efforts to get rid of Boris. And that was the fundamental error. But the fundamental error was about democracy. The people voted for Boris Johnson.
Yes.
They hadn't voted for individual MPs. Some had voted for the Conservative Party. Most had voted for Boris. And therefore Boris had a mandate which was taken away from him by people who weren't able to win elections themselves. They had this huge vanity and thought they could. And Sunak was heavily involved in that. We know he set up his website long before the leadership vacancy arose to be ready to campaign.
Ready for Rishi.
And it was quite improper of the Chancellor of the Exchequer to be involved in a leadership campaign whilst remaining member of cabinet. He should resign if he wanted to propose Boris long before he did. And therefore he takes responsibility because he was actually one who was instrumental in the efforts to get rid of Boris.
Although our audience had no truck at all with Boris Johnson suggesting that there's nothing really wrong with the Boris wave of immigration and those however many million that came in between him pledging to take back control of the borders and then leaving office is one of the reasons why Reform are rising high in the polls. I mean, he's making the point, he keeps on coming back to the thing, well, there was nobody in the year of COVID, nobody came in, and then we didn't keep track of the numbers because the Home Office wouldn't give us the figures. He said we were flying blind. We didn't know how many EU students would come back. We didn't know how many Hong Kongers and Ukrainians would take up the scheme. But he seems to be missing the central premise of the Telegraph reader, listeners' analysis of Johnson, which is that he was a breaker of promises on immigration.
But I think the mistake was made. I think unquestionably the points-based system did not achieve what it was intended to achieve.
Yeah.
I think the Ukrainians and the British nationals overseas, the Hong Kong people, were exceptional. I think that is different. But too many people came in, and that should have been rectified faster. Should have been rectified before the penultimate year of Sunak, when he put in some restrictions. So he put some restrictions in late 2023, which then began to come in. That should have happened at least a year earlier. One of the problems was that the changes in leader meant changes in Secretary of State, and therefore you did not have any continuity of seeing what the real problems were. And you had a Treasury, which is utterly useless organisation, arguing for more and more migration as the only way to grow the economy, and the ABR scoring it as a way of boosting government revenue. So you had Treasury orthodoxy pushing the government in the wrong direction. You did, it's true, have slow collection of figures, so people didn't know. You had a post-COVID panic that nobody wanted to work anymore, that people had stopped working at home, and never wanted to go back. So there was a feeling that there was a need to get people in, partly because inflation was taking off, which actually thought the Bank of England was ridiculous, an excessive COVID quantitative easing. So there are all sorts of things that go with it.
Yes.
But it was a mistake. The points-based system was too generous, and it didn't achieve what was intended. I think, to be fair to Boris, the slowness in rectifying it is not his fault after he's left. And you have to have that question of would he have rectified it earlier had he still been Prime Minister? Would it have been changed in 2022 if you had continuity of the Secretary of Office and Boris in number 10? And I don't know the answer.
Far to know the answer. I mean, I'm sorry to name drop, but I was at a Thatcher centenary dinner last night, and Liz Truss was just sitting opposite me, and I reflected on her and thought to myself, Sunak's got a lot to thank her for, because she has been the sort of resident criticism sponge when it comes to any economic calamity that the Tories might have wrought, and it's absolutely covered up Rishi's, frankly, out of control COVID spending, which has also created this black hole that we now find ourselves in. I know Rachel Reeves has made her own black hole, But let's be honest, it's very convenient that Truss takes all of the criticism and it's almost absolved Rishi Sunak. I mean, he's walked away from all of this scot-free in a way.
Well, he's not Prime Minister, and he took the Tories to an historic loss.
But reputationally, he seems preserved. She isn't. He isn't. Boris Johnson isn't reputationally preserved.
And I think Rishi Sunak is perhaps not particularly concentrated upon.
No, okay. Worst thing than being talked about is not being talked about. If you're enjoying your journalism, why not sign up to From the Editor, our free email newsletter? Start your day with the latest news and opinion, plus our bite-sized puzzles. Scan the QR code to sign up free today.
Looking to buy a gaming PC? Then you need to visit Cyber Power PC. We'll help you with the best spec at a price you'll love. With us, you get 5 years warranty, a lifetime of technical support, and systems built by experts. So it's no wonder so many gamers choose Cyber Power PC.
You know I pulled these off better, right?
Okay. I am the moment.
Yeah. It'll be a brief one.
Labour is the pedo defender party. That's how Kevin Badenoch attacked Keir Starmer at PMQs today ahead of a crucial by-election.
I have been to Gaunton and Denton, the by-election with sectarian divide, and I tried to track down Zach Polanski and got nowhere. This is the spot where he was last seen before a flying saucer picked him up and whisked him away. We did try and speak to some green activists. One of them asked which newspaper we were with, and then he said, absolutely f***ing not.
Tim, you're fresh from Gordon and Denton and PMQs. I'm fresh from the orthodontist, where my youngest had train tracks fitted on both the upper and lower teeth. I know. I had train tracks once when I had to do American Telly, and I planned to go to the orthodontist, and I said to the woman, the head of talent there, a woman called Elena, a wonderful lady, who recruited me to do royal coverage in America. And I said to her, oh, you'll be pleased to know that I am going to get my teeth sorted out. She goes, yeah, you need to get that whole fat row sorted. I said, I'm talking about my bottom teeth.
So wait, you had British teeth, and the Americans insisted upon you straightening them?
Yeah, well, I didn't get the... I've had braces, believe it or not, but like, you know, my teeth are quite... Lefties like to describe me as looking like a horse.
This is
Nothing is hard.
That's horrible. That's
Isn't
not
it?
true. But this is the difference between men and women on television. You have to consider teeth.
Yeah.
For me, the debate is do I wear a tie or not.
That's right. Although you would have loved the American approach because, like, the hairdressing in the morning is like nothing you've ever known in your life. And also, curiously, they call it a blowjob. So you're booked for your blowjob at 5 a.m. I was like, goodness, is this in the contract?
There are some MPs, and I'm tempted to name them, who will use going on Newsnight or Politics Live as a chance to have a makeover.
Yes. To be fair,
They're in there for about 30 minutes.
can I just say that one said female MP, Labour, won't name her.
I think I know exactly who that is.
Was there for at least an hour before I arrived. Just a little touch up. We're getting off subject here. Right, we're going to get on to you and Gordon and Denton chasing down Zach Polanski. Not with much success, it must be conceded. In just a minute. But PMQ, best line of PMQ, was it Kenny? Was it Kenny saying this?
I'm amazed that while we're trying to talk about student loans, the Prime Minister has the cheek to talk about my party being smaller. His party is smaller too, including one MP who was arrested for child sex offences. So perhaps before he gets on his high horse, he should ask why his backbenchers are saying that they're being called the Pedo Defenders Party. Yes, yes. So why don't we get that? So if he... Yes, sir. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. I know it makes them...
Labour was genuinely offended at that, and I can't blame them. Nonetheless, it cut, and it cut deep. PMQs played out as a party political broadcast for the Gorton and Denton by-election. The Labour whips had gone around and placed questions so that people could ask things that Starmer could then turn it upside down and turn it into an attack either on the Greens or Reform. So to give an example, in answer to a question about drugs, he said this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Prime Minister update the House on how the government is tackling the misuse of illegal drugs? And will he reassure parents in my constituency of Rugby and across the country that Labour will continue to disagree with the views and the voices of those who think that it is a good idea to legalise Class A drugs like heroin and crack cocaine?
Prime Minister,
Can I thank him for raising that? We are working relentlessly to tackle the supply of illegal drugs and expanding police powers to test more suspects upon arrest. The Green Party's policy isn't just irresponsible, it's reprehensible. Legalising, Mr. Speaker, cocaine, heroin, ketamine, and the rape drug GHB, a drug which we know is used to spike drinks for women. Now, whilst we're making that an offence, the Green Party's proposals would shatter lives, increase antisocial behaviour, and see drugs use running riot. And I have to say, as the father of a 17-and-a-half-year-old son, the idea that the argument is being made by the Greens that when he turns 18 in just a few months, it would be lawful to provide him with heroin and crack cocaine is absolutely disgusting.
And Nigel Farage was, funny enough, having bobbed at PMQs and never been called, sometimes he doesn't even bother to go. Keir Starmer had him firmly in his sights.
But Mr. Speaker, I also have to raise this. A death threat was shared by Reform's Deputy Council Leader in Lancashire against a brilliant member for Bolton. It said he should be shot. When death threats were made against a member for Clapton, I stood at this dispatch box and condemned them outright. If he has any decency or backbone, he will stand up, apologise, condemn the comments, and sack the individual in his party. Will he do so?
Nigel Farage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the age of 14, Michelle Mandarin was forcibly removed from his home, the coral atoll of Ilcla, dumped on the quayside in Mauritius, forced to live on food scraps out of bins. He has resettled those islands, and yet now faces a removal order from yet another Labour government. So maybe twice in one lifetime, he's going to be asked to leave his homeland. Can I ask the Prime Minister, for a government that is full of human rights lawyers, within or without, why do the opinions and human rights of indigenous Chagossians not matter to him at all?
So he has neither the decency nor the backbone. But then, a death threat to a member of this House, whichever party they are in, he doesn't have the decency or the backbone to condemn it and to sack the individual. And that just shows that his party have got nothing to offer the country but grievance and division. Look at their candidate in Gorton and Denton, a man who says anyone who isn't white cannot be English. No wonder he's been endorsed by Tommy Robinson. It doesn't represent our country, and anybody who wants to stand against that mixed and division should vote Labour on Thursday tomorrow in Gorton and Denton.
Nigel needs to work on what he does when he's being insulted. It's not his fault, he doesn't really have a right to reply, although he did immediately then ask a question and chose not to comment on what he'd been asked about. But while the Prime Minister is slagging him off, Nigel has a habit of sitting there and just nodding. I think it's meant sardonically, as in, carry on, get on with it, but it can come across as though he's saying, yes, it's a death threat. That's exactly what we need in
No,
politics.
I know. Although I think most objective observers saw it for exactly what it was, which was a cynical ploy by the Prime Minister
It was utterly cynical.
to just sully his name in Parliament
Yes.
one day out from everyone going to the polls in
This
Greater
is,
Manchester.
we'll get on to the by-election, but it's one of the bitterest because both sides are suggesting that the other side is thoroughly corrupt
Yes.
and that if they won, there would be a civil war in Britain. That's the vibe that both are putting out. There was one other detail to this part of the broadcast, which was the first question from a Labour MP was about Palestine, and Starmer delivered a classically tortured, wordy response that you just know is going to be translated into several languages
Yes.
and distributed in Gordon and
The
Benton.
Urdu leaflets are being printed as we speak. And then again, I don't know whether it was contrived or not, but we then had the hard left Labour backbencher Imran Hussein stand up and start talking about the persecution of Muslims in this country, pointing to the Reform Party, gesticulating, and basically saying that they were responsible for stoking Islamophobia in the UK.
Mr. Speaker, violent and Islamophobic attacks against the Muslim community are becoming far too frequent in our country. Prime Minister, is it not the case that every single politician in this place, and I mean every politician, especially that lot over there. Mr. Speaker, they may nod their heads, but this morning we could have woken up to a horrific terrorist attack, killing innocent Muslim worshippers only for being Muslim. Prime Minister, is it not the case that every single politician in this place and every single journalist has a responsibility to stop fanning the flames of hatred against the Muslim community?
It's interesting how there are different takes in this by-election on the nature of diversity and unity. So Reform's whole line is, we talk to everyone in this constituency, we don't see race, and we don't believe that we should be having sectarian conversations. The left-wing take on diversity and unity is, diversity is unity, and because we talk to people in different languages, and because we celebrate their religions, that's the sort of thing that brings us together. And you can see Labour leaning into that in this edition of PMQs. With Starmer visiting the by-election, you sense that they think they might win,
Yeah.
or even place second. So
Yeah, so why do we think was that last minute that he just turned up?
it surprised everyone, but we'll talk about the by-election in a moment. We can't help but talk about it because, as I say, this entire PMQs was a choreographed opportunity for the Prime Minister to speak directly to the voters in Gorton and Denton. But to bring it back to Kenny,
Yeah.
she had a substantive point to make about the appalling rates of interest and debt that students accrue and why the government is not acting on it.
Speaker, it'll only turn around this year if he stops being the leader. Perhaps they can do something about that. He wants us to welcome economic news. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to welcome the fact that youth unemployment is at its highest ever. I'm not going to welcome the fact that unemployment has increased every single month under this Labour government. He is not doing anything about student loans because he is not governing. And he is not governing because he cannot govern. He is distracted by Labour scandal after Labour scandal. Mr. Speaker, even today now, there is an inquiry into the Inquiries Minister. That is all that they have offered since they came in. The defining moment of this man's premiership will not be breakfast clubs. It will be the sight of the man he appointed as ambassador to Washington just last year getting arrested. No wonder they're calling themselves all sorts of things. He needs to stop moaning about us and start fixing his useless government. Why should the country have to put up with 3 more years of this?
Tim, was she right to go in on student debt today? I mean, is that their own appeal to younger people? I mean, am I reading too much into it? Are they trying to appeal to the youth of Gorton Denton?
I think they genuinely care about it, but
Yeah.
it comes off the back of an appearance on a morning television program.
Yes.
Which one is it?
It's Good Morning Britain, and she had a fun fight with Martin Lewis.
That's
And,
right.
and I think actually the verdict on that was at a dinner last night with various different media types. And they said, what was Lewis doing? He basically hijacked her
He
interview.
walked onto the set and started shouting at her.
Ridiculous.
And then it all started shouting at him. And at one point, the two men were having a conversation and completely excluding the woman who was on to talk about it.
And she actually pointed that out. She said, hang on a minute, stop talking.
You're talking at me. Exactly. She handled herself really well.
She did. And it's those little viral moments that are really helping her out. But don't you think it was cutting because there was an element of truth in it to Conservatives?
Yeah.
When the Prime Minister said this.
Yet again, she's shown why she is so utterly irrelevant.
Saving money on flights is a breeze on Kayak Header. Kayak compares prices from hundreds of travel sites to find you great deals. Just enter where you want to go, and Kayak shows you prices from booking sites and airlines. Sun, sea, and savings. You could save 25% or more by comparing flights on Kayak. Remember your bathing suit, Heather?
I mean, he is just so patronising.
He is.
And dreadful. He makes my skin crawl when he comes out with this stuff.
And remember when he said something similar to the leader of Plaid in Westminster and was then later forced to apologise. And then it does tend to be that female members of the cabinet get sacked. And there was the infamous incident when the Chancellor was crying next to him and he didn't notice. And okay, so we'd rather not notice gender, but it is a pattern that some people are picking up on. Also, you'll recall in previous weeks there was talk about is his hand shaking.
Yeah.
And I dismissed it as an issue because I think it's unfair. It's a frightening thing to do PMQs, and I don't think we should be focusing too much on little tics like that. But now it's been mentioned, I can't help but notice it. I think the tremor is in both hands. I think he's terrified.
Really?
I don't think it's a neurological thing. I couldn't help but notice it this time round.
And couldn't be actually. Penny Baker is looking quite not nonchalant. She is looking so much more relaxed. Maybe a little too relaxed.
Oh, she has the hands of the Ripper, psychopath hands, just totally still.
She is completely contained. But then this is also, in a way, part of her problem, right? She is still and in control of the class, and therefore can be accused of lacking warmth.
Is that
lacking charm? I don't know. Look,
I'm not sure it is.
She could be the only safe pair of hands in the room right now.
I don't think this is an area where people care about charm or warmth or empathy, as the left likes to call it. I think people are so angry about everything that they really want someone who sounds like they mean business.
No, fair enough. Now, what was also interesting, I asked about should she have gone on student debt. Of course, it's a really important issue. But we have got the Peter Mandelson saga hanging around in the background. It may have been a calculation. Look, we've got the submission from Lindsay Hoyle that he was the one who said to the police that he was concerned the former Labour peer might be a flight risk.
He began the day's Parliament by giving a statement about that.
Order. Members will be aware of comments in the media regarding the arrest of Lord Mandelson. To prevent any inaccurate speculation, I'd like to confirm that upon receipt of information that I felt it was relevant, I passed this on to the Metropolitan Police in good faith, as is my duty and responsibility. It is regrettable this rapidly ended in the media, as this is a live investigation. Members will understand that it would not be appropriate to make any further comments, and I'd like to caution members from doing so.
The Tories may have calculated we're going to have Mandelson and Epstein dominating the headlines for days to come, so let's just do serious politics and talk about university students saddled with tens of thousands of pounds in debt. Fair enough. And I'm looking now, Tim, top of our news ticker, what's the most read story on the Telegraph online right now? It is Poppy Wood's exclusive headline revealed the content of Epstein's secret storage locker.
Which are revealed to include sex slave manuals, videotapes, and large number of photographs, such as a picture of a young Prince Andrew and a portrait of a woman resembling Gillian Maxwell. Also, piles of cash, diamonds, gold, and a trove of international passports and other identification.
Associates tried to clear out the lockers after Epstein's arrest to keep the content secret from the FBI. Funny enough, by the way, I'd love to have a deposit box, like in the movies. Should we get some Daily Tea memorabilia and put it in a deposit box somewhere?
That's more like the Blue Peters.
Oh yeah, that's like burying a time capsule. Put a teapot in there, a tea cozy, your hair gel, my hairspray. Worth reading.
I've seen a video of his old plane, the Lita Express, which has been mothballed, and it contained bottles of baby lotion. I know.
Also,
Curdles the blood.
you made this point earlier. These people flew on a plane.
Called the Lolita Express. They're really... I know.
The size is a name,
Aside from calling the pedo jet, there really is pretty obvious what you are getting
the pedo
into.
rocket.
I know.
Come on. Anyway, so
But
we
this
have.
will all come out in the wash.
Okay, so we have Lindsay Hoyle making his little intervention.
Because he had visited the Virgin Islands during recess, and he says that while he was there, someone told him that they believed Mandelson was going to go to the islands.
Yeah. Well,
He felt obliged to pass that on to the police, and the police then spoke to that source and clearly concluded that he was a risk too. I'm saying this because Mandelson's lawyer has stated that the idea that he was ever going to flee was nonsense.
Baseless.
But I want to emphasise that Hoyle got it from another source, and the police did speak to that source before they then spoke to Mandelson. And Mandelson has now been required to surrender his passport as part of his bail conditions.
For balance, let's read the statement from the spokesman. The arrest was prompted by a baseless suggestion that he was planning to leave the country and take up permanent residence abroad. There is absolutely no proof whatsoever in any such suggestion. We have asked the MPs for the evidence relied upon to justify the arrest. Peter Mandelson's overriding priority is to cooperate with the police investigation, as he has done throughout this process, and to clear his name.
Because he has, throughout, been totally open, hasn't he? Clearly, every stage of his career, he's been forthcoming about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, hasn't he?
I think what's interesting is the files that are being held back by the Cabinet Office on the proviso that they may be prejudicial to any future trial if they're published is interesting. I can understand files relating to his conduct when he was business secretary in the noughties being prejudicial, because this is about misconduct in public office in relation to leaked documents to Epstein while he was alive.
But we're interested in the vetting process during the second stage of his career, when he was resurrected as ambassador.
My very great suspicion is that the vetting process was literally, is your name Peter? I mean, we've discussed this. Do you know where Washington DC is?
Yes.
Can you name the US president? Here's your plane ticket.
Yes.
So that's going to be revealed, and obviously Morgan McSweeney's role in it, which in turn takes the Prime Minister in terms of judgment, lack of ability to be across the detail of who is being appointed to the most crucial and significant diplomatic post in the land, historic ties. Can I also make one point? We discussed Gordon Brown having a revival. Why is Tony Blair escaping scrutiny on this? As a documentary is made about how great he was, I find this incredible.
Well, it has been reported that during the Blair administration, when Prince Andrew was appointed trade envoy, the King was actually against it. Who was lobbying for it? Peter Mandelson.
Yes.
King lost that fight. Peter Mandelson won it.
Yes.
Again, I'm not suggesting any connection between Mandy and Andy or anything like that, but it comes back to this issue of political judgment. Tony Blair famously said that the Labour Party will have changed when it has come to learn to love Peter Mandelson.
Yeah.
And that in itself is such an insulting comment upon New Labour. It's why I never liked at the time this patronising idea to the socialist movement and the Labour movement that you've got to learn to love.
Yes.
This
Come away from your commie idea of
this
leaning to Peter Mandelson.
This very unpleasant kind of pseudo, almost Tory figure. You've got to learn to love him. But nonetheless, it all comes back to this issue of political judgment being shown by people. Could you not see that the appointment of Prince Prince Andrew was something that wasn't wise.
Yeah.
In the same way for Keir Starmer, whatever the betting was, whatever you were told, including by Mandelson, who I think has been demonstrated to be a liar in the past, why would you say, yes, go ahead, let's appoint him? But my question is, do we think Mandelson could afford to flee to the Virgin Islands? It's not a cheap place to go to.
No, so all income streams have been cut off. Global Council, the sort of lobbying organisation that was pretty formidable and had some extremely high net worth clients, including China, that's gone into administration. He's servicing different properties, isn't he? He's got the property in North London, in Camden. He's got the property that he's renting in Wiltshire. I can't imagine that's going to continue. Why would it? How could it? His husband Ronaldo is from Brazil, so maybe that was at the back of their minds. Would they want to both flee there? Having said that, the other thing about this, of course, is with our sclerotic legal system, him cooperating with the police in their inquiries could go on not just for months, but years.
Yes.
And that's why we also reported this week that this release of files, should there be some deemed to be prejudicial to any future trial, therefore might not come out until the next Parliament. Will Keir Starmer be Prime Minister then? What will it all mean? So this is going to take years and years and years, which is the other thing. So I suppose that's why they're looking at him being a flight risk. But
And the word on the street is that Mandelson has lawyered up in a way that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has not.
yes, he's got Mishcon Berea by his side, who are very formidable and phenomenal legal outfit in London. And he's also got this extremely highly respected KC, Adrian Derbyshire, to take on his case. Intriguingly, Derbyshire represented Boris Johnson back in 2019.
Right.
It was a Brexit-related case. Johnson brought an urgent judicial review when a magistrate issued 3 summonses against him for alleged misconduct in public office. And he fought that claim and won. So yes, he's got a very formidable legal team alongside him, whereas Andrew, I'm not quite sure who's representing him these days. In fact, it's been a subject of discussion in this newsroom. So what do we think? What's our verdict on PMQs then? I mean, if he manages to turn it into a Labour Party broadcast ahead of a crucial by-election, then he's won it, hasn't
It
it?
all comes back to Bolton and Denton. And I think there are a couple of factors in his favour. One is that visit we discussed, which suggests he may have data, which is positive. Another is that the sun has come out. I don't know about you, but this is the first day in a long time where I haven't felt like throwing myself off a cliff.
Yes.
And that's because we can finally see sun,
Yes.
blue sky.
It's
It might be a lifting of mood. And I would say, judging on the Prime Minister's general attitude at the beginning of PMQs and on the more bouncy quality of the backbenchers, Labour, for the first time in a long time, looks like it's a bit hopeful about something. So I think Labour is gambling a lot on a good result on Thursday.
Well, you were in Bolton and Denton yesterday. Coming up, we could be discussing
So
whether
I'm going to
Keir
leave
Starmer
it
could.
there for now. But thank you for watching
I
with
went to
me.
Bolton principally
And
because Zach
I'll be back
Lansky,
soon.
I went there the night before. My video team bumped into him on the train coming up that morning. They tried to speak to him and he didn't want to. We said, can we meet you later on the campaign trail? And he